There is big news coming out of Silver Dollar City. A huge land purchase, construction going on. So what's actually happening, and what does all that mean for the future of Silver Dollar City? So there's big news coming out of Silver Dollar City with the land purchase. There's construction going on. There's lots of rumors flying around. And so I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I'm going to take a look at what's happening and what little bit I know and some of the facts that are out there. And then we're going to take a look at the rumors and see if we can't learn a little bit about what's actually happening at Silver Dollar City and how big this is. Well, the first thing is big. Silver Dollar City just announced a few days ago that they purchased 800 acres of property. That's huge. Now, if you don't know how big that is, Silver Dollar City itself right now, the park, just the park being used, is approximately 100 acres. That's a pretty good sized piece of property. To compare, Whitewater and Branson is at 13 acres. It's not that big. To put it in a broader perspective, Disneyland, the whole resort, Disneyland California Adventure, Downtown Disney, is about 500 acres. And Silver Dollar City just bought 800. All of Disneyland in California, 500. Silver Dollar City just bought 800. This is huge, right? Oh my goodness. They must have some major plans and something going on. Well, let me actually show you the piece of property that was purchased, as well as what they actually own in the area already, and give you a little bit of background on property around Silver Dollar City. This is a property map of the area. That big green box that you see there, that is actually where the park sits right now. Now, that whole box is not the park. The park just is this little circle right in the middle there. But that whole big green box isn't even owned by Silver Dollar City. It's actually owned by College of the Ozarks and the Presbyterian Church of Branson. Silver Dollar City rents it from them on a 100-year lease, and I will actually come back to that later. So hold on to that thought. You see all of these blue boxes that I've colored in? This is actually all property that Silver Dollar City or Hirschen Family Entertainment already owns. That's a lot of property out there. Now, to give you an idea, you see this one box that's kind of purplish? This is the property that they just purchased. Now, it may include a couple of these other parcels right around it, but that is basically the main location of this property. That's the 800 acres right there. It's basically property left over from a resort purchase. They started to build these townhomes and then abandoned the project. And this nice little yellow sliver up here, that's where the townhomes are. Silver Dollar City doesn't own that. They bought everything down south of it. And you can see they own other property around. Now, when you start looking at the property they own around, if that 800 acres is, even if it's the square that is right there, well, then when you zoom out, you can see Silver Dollar City already owns a lot more than 800 acres to begin with. And they're adding this on. So they've got a lot of property out there. So what are they going to do with all of this? It sort of connects to the park. It's all off on one side of Highway 76, along with the old Celebration City property down in Branson and some other plots out there. It gives them a huge amount of property. But is there anything going to actually happen with it? So here's where the rumor mill starts coming in. And I've heard some very interesting stories. One of the ones actually revolves around the fact that Silver Dollar City is leasing their property from College of the Ozarks and the Presbyterian Church. And one of the suggestions was, now Silver Dollar City has enough property they can move the park. So when the lease is up, well, then they'll just move to this other piece of property and rebuild the park. This is along the lines of Disneyland is moving to Texas. Okay, first off, you can't move the cave. That's not going to happen. Second, this lease is mutually beneficial for all parties involved. Hirschen basically gets near free use of the land. There is a portion of all their proceeds that they actually donate to College of the Ozarks and the Presbyterian Church as a result of sitting on the land. So the college and the church basically make free money off the park sitting there, and the park basically gets to use the land however they like. There's no reason for them to move. There's also another 40 years left of this lease. It's not going anywhere. So, the whole idea that, they bought this to move the park later, no. Not gonna happen. So what did Silver Dollar City actually say? The announcement that they released was that the land was purchased for strategic purposes. That could mean just about anything. Now, among the rumors out there is they're going to move Whitewater. This is actually a rumor that's been around for probably 15, 20 years. I imagine they probably would like to move it, but at the same time, is it worth moving? And that there's this whole return on investment calculation that only Silver Dollar City is privy to. Whether it would actually be cost effective to move it or not, that's really hard to say. It's a maybe. And I'll be honest, I don't have any sources on the inside that I've plugged and probed and said, what are you going to do? I haven't asked them, so I don't really know one way or the other from inside the park. For me, that seems a little bit like a stretch. One of the other things that has been talked about, again, out in the rumor mills, is, are they going to build a resort? They're building a resort at Dollywood, which is also run by Herschend. That makes sense, and look at what Disney has done with the resorts, and Universal, and this, I think, may be a little more plausible. Silver Dollar City already owns a campground and operates it right by the park. They are already invested in that. I could absolutely see them opening up a resort and attaching it in some way to the park and providing easy access or something. Honestly, I would be surprised if that is not in their long-term plans. It would seem to make sense. So, is a resort a possibility? Yes. Is a park expansion a possibility? Well, when you look at where this plot of land is, probably not. They already own a lot of land that is around the park and have access to even more because of the lease agreement. This plot of land is not going to play any role in park expansion, if there even is a plan for park expansion. Silver Dollar City is growing, but much slower than, say, Dollywood. Dollywood has more than doubled its size in the last 10, 15 years. Silver Dollar City, nowhere near as much. It's grown, but not anywhere near on the same pace. There may be plans, but this expansion is not a park expansion. It's just not practical. One of the jokes has been, well, maybe it's parking lots. And again, this plot is kind of off a little bit. They have other pieces of property that have much better access to Highway 76, much better access to the park that they could use for parking lot expansion if that's what they wanted to do. This piece of property, in all honesty, I think is probably going to do what most of their other property that they own in the area is doing, and probably sit there and not do much of anything. It's a future investment that they can use for something later on, but I doubt that there's anything short-term happening. They probably saw a deal to get the property cheap and went, let's do it. We can always sell it later. We can do something with it later. Go for it. So that's what I'm honestly thinking, is they had a bargain price and took it. I don't expect to see anything happening with it soon. However, there is things happening in the park. Right behind Red Gold, there is a big plot of land. It's actually right behind Fireman's Landing as well. There's a whole old parking lot. It actually used to be the original Highway 76. And that parking lot now has a ton of construction. They've been pouring concrete. There is stuff definitely happening. Sorry I don't have any pictures of it, but something's coming. So the strong rumors that I'm getting, they've been talking for years about having to replace Fire in the Hole. One of the things about Fire in the Hole, as well as the flooded mine, is the buildings have not aged well. They've hit 60 years, they're showing the age. And so it is time to start thinking replacement, unfortunately. So Fire in the Hole is themed on firefighters putting out a fire. Well, what better place to put it than Fireman's Landing? So the strong scuttlebutt is that what is being built is a new Fire in the Hole. We don't know anything about it yet. We don't know if it's going to be the same ride or if it's going to be updated or if original scenes or what they're going to do. But it's pretty much very, very likely that it is a replacement for Fire in the Hole. Where the rumors really get interesting is what then happens with the old Fire in the Hole. The building almost surely is going to be scrapped. If you like the ride, get your rides in this year because it's very likely this is the last year for it. And again, I don't have inside knowledge. I'm just saying this is what definitely seems to be happening. I have done some checking on what the plans are. One of the big rumors is that they're going to tear down the building and put a brand new train station in there. And here's where it starts getting interesting. And I'm not saying this is happening. I'm not saying it isn't. The one thing I will say is the main source of this rumor is one certain place, one certain cause that at various other times has also said that they were going to take the amphitheater that's there and move it to the other side of the park over by the homestead. Insisted on this for years. It obviously didn't happen. Insisted that they were going to move the entrance of the park and rebuild the whole thing, and that obviously hasn't happened. So please be aware that if you are listening to somebody that has a lot in common with Nike, for example, their reliability is not what they would like to lend you to believe. Treat any rumor as just that. It's a rumor. And not every source out there is as reliable as you might think. So just be cautious with that. As far as this area becoming a train station, the train station itself creates a lot of foot traffic. You already get a lot of foot traffic with the Opera House there, with Powder Keg there, with the Saloon there, with Wildfire and American Plunge just up there a little bit. It's a pretty busy place. You run into one issue if, just say, for example, if the train station was there, you run into a couple issues with it. One, the Saloon is there. And if you've got the train loading right by the Saloon, that's a lot of noise that's going to bleed over into the Saloon show. You know when that train's going by if you're in the Saloon. It's loud. You can't miss it. And if it's just sitting there for 5 minutes at a time, this is sound conflict issues. So that to me seems an issue. The other problem you have is that is actually on a little bit of a downslope right there. It's just past the trestle, and then it's getting ready for it's a rather dramatic grade going down. It's not the best place to be stopping a train for a number of issues. It can be done, but if you're wanting to load and unload people and things like that, there's just some interesting dynamics that take place there. And I don't want to get into too much because there are some things I'm aware of. There are some things that I'm guessing on here, and I don't want to step out of bounds. It just creates some interesting issues. Now, on the other hand, where the train station is now, you've got Flooded Mine. The Flooded Mine is starting to run into the same issue that Fire in the Hole is. It's showing its age, and if we're going to be honest, the Flooded Mine's days are probably numbered as well. So then you kind of open up that area for a future expansion of some sort. Then is the train in the way? Does it still work there viably? Or does it become an issue in building this new attraction several years down the road? And I think that may play a role as well. It does give a reason to possibly relocate the train. But really, outside of the train and Flooded Mine, it's a quiet area where they are now. So if you have a big crowd waiting for the train, it doesn't really interfere or impact anything else. Whereas if you do it down to the other place, it can. I did see one thing too. Well, hey, they can build a train depot that can actually hold a full train load. You actually can get a full train load of people in the depot if you're loading it right. When I was working on the train, we would typically load about 220 to 240 people in the depot. And a train holds 250 people. It's learning to train your eye and gauge the crowd and know how it works. And not everybody does it so well. And I don't want to throw slag on the train crews the last few years, but let's just say they have not been as efficient. Let's just say that. But you can definitely put pretty close to a full train load in the depot as it is. So that's really not an issue. I think bigger issues is they just don't know what to do with the space. And if they do want to put in a bigger ride, say a roller coaster that may go over the tracks or something, again, rumors and dreaming, would the train station be in the way? That we don't know. The other issue, though, is they actually just did some major work a couple years ago at the train depot when they replaced all of the planking. This was just after I left, so it would have been about 4 years ago. They spent some big money replacing all of the wood planking in the depot with a very high quality product. You don't spend and invest a lot of money like that just 3-4 years later to scrap it all. That's just my thoughts. I don't know. In talking with other people, there seems to be a lot of about the train station moving. I don't know how credible that is. And again, evaluate your sources carefully and their past reliability. I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. So that's kind of where Silver Dollar City is now. There is a new fire in the hole coming that I'm confident of. What's going to happen in the old spot, we don't know. Is it possible the train station's moving? Yes, it's possible. I don't know that it's likely, but I really don't know one way or the other. Just giving my opinion. And the property, don't expect much. So there's a little look at Silver Dollar City rumors, news, and updates, and what little bit of insight I have on it. Do you have more insight? Do you have questions? Do you have comments? I'd love to hear them. Please share them in the comments below. Thank you so much for hitting like, share, and subscribe. Share the video with other people interested. I love to hear their feedback too. Thank you so much to my YouTube members and my patrons for their financial support, and to you for watching. Thanks so much. God bless. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to know about contact information, fan pages, merchandise, and more, please be sure to check the description below. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to know when I have new ones, well, make sure you hit that subscribe button right up there. And if you want to see another one of my videos, well, I've got a great one for you right here. And a huge thank you to these wonderful people here who support me on Patreon and with YouTube memberships. They get behind the scenes information, special perks, and more. If you'd like to know more about that, well, make sure you check that button right there. Thank you so much.